The great Sean McDonough of ESPN is brought to you by Catches Law Group, New England's injury pros. Set up your free injury consultation at catcheslaw.com. And he joins us this morning on the Harbor One hotline. Hey, Sean.
What's going on, Greg? How's everybody this morning?
Doing great. How are you?
Doing fine, thank you. Preparing for another college football game this weekend as we speak, and, of course, getting ready for Red Sox baseball right here on the flagship tonight.
Red Sox have played themselves into a tie for last place with the Yankees.
That's one way of phrasing it, yes. How about the Yankees have done such a good job of playing their way up to a tie for fourth place?
So I sit here, I brought this up at the start of the show, and I just am curious about next season and the reaction that John Henry has to, if this goes the way it continues to go, to this team finishing in last place 3 of the 4 years that Chaim Bloom has been here. And is that something in your mind that John Henry is okay with?
Well, it's the big question, and I don't know the answer to that, right? Because they have not been particularly verbal lately, in recent years about how they feel about the way things are going. I'm sure they're not happy regardless about finishing in last place, but if the attitude is, we're building something that's sustainable, we want to compete for championships every year, and we think now we're building the nucleus to do that, then maybe they stick to the plan. But I think it's a hard sell. We saw that yesterday. I know they sort of have talked about they're really not the Tampa Bay model, but it doesn't help you when you're not good and you're playing the Yankees like last night and there are 7,000 empty seats there, and that costs you money. So I don't know. To me it shouldn't be acceptable, but I think the argument against that would be, well, look at Rafaela, look at Casas, look at Abreu, look at Bayo, look at Jarren Duran. Here come the guys that really are going to be a part of this nucleus doing it the way we're doing it.
Sean, to drop not just 1 but 2 yesterday, is this just they've given up? There's no effort there, or are you still seeing the effort and it's just a talent issue? To drop 2 against the Yankees, it's a bad look for them.
Yeah, it's a frustrating day. When you go 0 for 19 for the day with runners in scoring position, it's going to be hard to win. And, I think they're trying hard. I think they're just not very talented. And to that point, neither are the Yankees. If you look at the lineup they rolled out there for 2 days yesterday, in the nightcap last night, they had 2 guys who hadn't pitched in the major leagues in years. One guy hadn't pitched since 2018. The other guy hadn't pitched since 2019. So, they had journeymen out there. They had rookies, some of whom are prospects, some of whom are just guys. So, it wasn't like they had the Babe Ruth, Lou Gehrig Yankee lineup out there either. So, it's I think they're still trying. I don't think anybody goes up there and says, well, you know what, I don't care. I'll just strike out and get it over with. That was the way it played. It looked a couple times yesterday, particularly with runners in scoring position. I think they're trying. I just think, I'm sitting here looking at the standings, Courtney. They're 1 game over 500. They're exactly 500 at home. They're 1 game over on the road. Their run differential for the year is plus 14. It's basically dead even. And I've been saying all along, I think that's who they are. I think they're a 500 mediocre team, and at the end of the year, the record is probably going to be right around where it is now.
So, Sean, we know that they're not going to make the postseason. It pretty much looks like the season's over. I tell people still tune in to hear your sultry pipes. Is that the word, right? When you have somebody has
it
good pipes,
one, yes.
Right? But we have
His
is it sultry? Is that how you say
Sultry.
it?
Sultry, yeah, you got it.
I know I was right on. That's
I don't know if that's the right description for my voice, but I know you intended it as a compliment.
Yes.
So I'm going to take it no matter what.
That's a big compliment.
It's like in the movie with
Sultry, I kind of think of I don't know, seductive.
Yeah.
But maybe that's my lacking the definition of the word.
It's like the movie I saw with Cedric the Entertainer when he played Nighthawk, and he was on late at night talking about next song up is Barry White.
People have made that comparison between me and him several times. He and I.
So we kind of talked about this a little bit on the show today. The the ownership has to make a decision on direction they want to go in. Do they stick with Cora and move on from Heim? Do they stick with Heim and move on from Cora? Or do they run it back with the same guys? What do you think they ultimately do? I think they're going to stick with Heim and move on from Cora.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Why do you think that?
I think that because Heim is going to say, you hired me to come here and help save you money and rebuild the farm system. I need a guy that I can pick that I want to be manager that I'm not bumping heads with. This was a guy that they had already kind of did Cora a favor because of the whole suspension thing and bringing him back. He's not necessarily a Heim Bloom guy. Heim didn't hire him.
That is all plausible. If the owners are willing to give Heim that kind of power after 4 years of what we have seen so far. And again, I think they're more positive on Heim than the fan base because they talk about how good their farm system is, and we're starting to see some of the products of that now. And apparently there are more behind some of these guys who have already arrived. So maybe they're content that it's heading in the right track. But knowing this ownership group as we do, they want to win. I don't think you care about winning and then all of a sudden you don't care about winning. I mean, you want to win. Why do you own sports teams if you don't want to win? I mean, I know they make money off them, but I don't think that's their primary motivation, right? So, I think they have to make a decision. I just think Alex has more of a leg to stand on because as much as I've said, I wish he wouldn't say the roster is the roster and make it sound like, hey, don't blame me. What am I supposed to do with this mess? I agree with them. So basically, as we said, I think they gave him a team that's a 500 team. So it's hard for me to blame him for the record. Do I think do I agree with everything that he's done? No. But do I think he's a good manager? Yes.
Curtis,
and I'm not sure that we know if Heim Bloom is good or bad. If you went just based on the results, you would say, well, he has less of a track record to stand on than Alex Cora.
Sure.
And I like them both personally. I mean, I never really cheer for anybody to lose their job, but I think Alex has more of the track record.
Yeah. Well, I always cheer for you, Sean. And I have a question. Simple. You noted the 7,000 empty seats. Can you feel? Are they embarrassed? Like the front? Is this going to be an off season where there's a bit of a change? I'm not talking about the actual personnel, the people making the decisions. Is there going to be an influx of cash spent this off season to get the team in a better place for next year?
Well, I would hope so. I mean, even if you say, you know what, we're building largely from within and in our farm system and developing players and that kind of thing, you still need to go out and add infusions of talent, whether it's in trades or in free agency, to supplement that. Nobody just sits there year after year after year with the team that they drafted, or very few teams do that. So I would hope so, because I said to Doug Lane and the other people in the booth last night, Joe and Joe Weil, if they don't do anything in the off season, they just come back with this group and some cosmetic little Band-Aids. I think the attendance is going to continue to go down. Now, maybe it won't because it's people from out of town or fans of the other team, like we saw when the Dodgers were here. But you got to give them something a little more to watch. Maybe, and I think guys like Rafaela will be fun to watch. Duran became a really fun player to watch, but they need to do something.
Sean, you brought up college football, and so I have this one for you. Which former NFL star has a better chance of getting a win this week, Coach Sanders or Coach Wiggins?
Well, are we still playing Barnstable?
No. Unfortunately, I know you had asked, I think during the radio telethon, whether Barnstable had a football team. Unfortunately, Barnstable won that game against Brockton 49-14.
Tough day for us.
I missed that one.
Yes.
Yeah,
well, they have a
turnovers.
very good football team, obviously.
Oh yeah, very talented football team.
Yes.
In Barnstable. Well, who are the Boxers playing?
Franklin,
How are they?
good football team, well coached. It's not about them, Sean. It's what I tell the kids. It's not about who you line up across. It's about you.
Right.
You do what you're supposed to do. That's the most important thing.
Mm-hmm. Well, then I'm going to say Coach Prime, because they're going to win. I think Colorado's significantly better than Colorado State. So, and I have faith. I'm not jumping off the Wiggy bandwagon yet. I think a loss to Franklin, and we might have to review that. But for now, we're hanging in there.
I'm going to do just like Dion when we do start racking up them wins. Do you believe now? Do you believe? That's all right.
How did you handle this, Wiggy? You know, I'm sure it was disappointing. Are you okay?
Oh, yeah, I'm fine. It's all about motivating the kids, right? It's all about when I always told them, Curtis tried to give me a good saying, but I couldn't remember it. So I told them the most important thing is this. You get more out of losses than you do from wins because losses build character. And I said, you know, like the great Gloria said in White Men Can't Jump, sometimes when you win, you really lose. And sometimes when you lose, you really win.
Wow.
I love it. Inspirational.
That is inspirational.
Yes.
Did you say that?
You know what else I would make sure, Wiggy? Like, I would make sure that all your kids go to class and get really good grades because one of the things I've heard like college coaches say is, you know what? We haven't really done that well on the field, but we've had the best GPA as a team that we've had in the last 12 years.
Yeah.
That's known as the Halfley Special.
The alumni always love that.
Yeah. I tell them
My buddy was the soccer coach at Syracuse for 20 years, and one of my classmates when I was there. And the soccer team always had the best GPA on campus. And I used to say, wow, you got a lot of good students. He said, no, not really. Every walk-on has a 4.0. I don't care if they've ever played soccer in their life. They're not going to play anyway, but they're on the team, and they're driving our GPA up. So, you know, I just go look for the kids who have a 4.0 GPA. It's a brilliant strategy.
And Curtis, I think BC has Franklin next week. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. And I was going to say, thank God our ratings are up because our
State, by the way, Saturday on ABC, part of the Disney family of networks, and we almost had that game, but there was a fear that it might be a little one-sided. So we're going to Morgantown, West Virginia, for the backyard brawl.
Ooh.
Saturday night, 7:30 on ABC. I'm sure you'll all be tuned in after Brockton and Franklin.
Yeah, listen to that's Pitt, West Virginia. It's a great
I once spent a miserable weekend in West Virginia because my daughter Julia was playing in a soccer tournament down there, and there's not a lot going on down there. Although
I like Morgantown. You know, it's a good college town.
Yeah.
They love their team.
no seafood towers.
No, there was
And it's really not that hard a place to get to. You know, you basically fly to Pittsburgh and drive an hour. So
That's it.
There are a lot harder places to get to in college athletics. So not a bad trip. And even though they're two kind of probably mediocre teams, although I think they might be a little better than that, it's usually spirited when they play, and it's a 1 point spread. So we just care about close games.
All right, Sean McDonough.
And who knows? Maybe BC will rise up this weekend and, you know, be the story of college football when they knock off Florida State. But, you know, that's a daunting task. Florida State is really, really good based on the evidence of the first couple of weeks.
BC barely beating Holy Cross really put me down a few notches.
Holy Cross is very good.
Still.
You know, for their level, I mean, that guy, mark my words, I'll be stunned if he's still at Holy Cross next year or the year after Bob Chesney.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at his track record, not just at Holy Cross. He was at Assumption before that. He was at Salve Regina, I think, places where they hadn't won anything in decades, and he immediately turned it around. You know, I know he's already starting to get some interest from, you know, FBS schools, and he's a really good guy, too. So, you know, they beat UConn a couple years ago. They beat Buffalo last. You know, they've knocked off some decent Division 1A teams who are now a FBS team. So, I'm not surprised they gave him a game. They're you know, they were in their playoffs last year at their level, and he's a tremendous coach. Tremendous.
Max Lane's son plays for them.
Yeah,
Hunter.
They were always competitive in the FCF playoffs. So
yeah, he's a terrific coach. You know, I'm surprised he's still there. I think you know, he's very comfortable there, so he's going to be selective if he chooses to go somewhere else. But he will have the opportunity to go someplace else. It wouldn't be surprising to me if it was after this year because. He is definitely. As a matter of fact, I asked Brian Kelly, you know, at Notre Dame and now at LSU. He's an Assumption grad. And when Bob got to Holy Cross and he was doing what he's doing, I said, "Did you ever meet Bob Chesney when he was at Assumption?" He said, "Let me tell you something. That guy is going to be a Power 5 coach soon. He's a big time coach, and he really is." So Holy Cross is lucky to have him. They've done what they need to do to keep him. He's doing an unbelievable job, but. I think it's going to be hard to keep him there.
Sean, great to hear your sultry voice again.
There you go.
And
thank you. I'll try to be more sultry. I'm already a little hoarse after game day describing all those hits with men on base last night got a little. Wait a minute, never mind. But tonight is another night. I mean, for a while the Red Sox were comfortably not in last place, and we all kind of took some pleasure out of the Yankees being in last place. So, neither one of these teams wants to finish last. So, hopefully, to Courtney's point, there's something here to play for, and 17 games to go.
All right. Well, we will talk to you again next week.